Another thing that I've learned as going along is that it's perfectly okay to accept and decide, I thought that was going to be more interesting, or I was going to, if I didn't succeed at something, then, what did I do wrong? And as I've gotten older, I realized that there's very little that we should really be worrying about. Very little. Very few things matter.
They said that we'd grow out of it. Well, the joke's on them, that's just our brains. We're eccentric, loud, and stubborn, and most of our clothing is covered in stains. It's not a deficit of attention, there's just too much to think about. So if executive dysfunction becomes a little too much, if you forgot why you came in this room, or you're hypersensitive to touch, then put on your seamless socks and come join our little flock. Bitches stimming together, we're weirds of a feather. Weirds of a feather.
Caw-caw! All right. I'll start us off and say, welcome to Weirds of a Feather, an AuDHD-Adjacent podcast. I'm your host, Grace Beret, and I'm not joined by Kristen today. I'm doing a one-on-one chat with my friend, Diane.
Hi, everyone.
Let's see. What do we want to start with? Maybe just a general who you are and how do we know each other?
Who I am, that's a very good question.
It's a hard question.
I will tell you that I just realized recently, I'm an identical twin, and I thought that I was going to be 73 years old in May, but in fact, I'm going to be 74. I told my sister that, we were going to be 73, and she said, no, we're going to be 74. And I was like, what? What?
How long have you been wrong? When did you lose count? You don't know?
I don't know. No. And that's one of the things about getting older is you forget so much that you don't even know that you've forgotten it.
Yeah.
And it just disturbs the people around you, but it doesn't bother me much.
Yeah.
And I know you because I met your mother in college, and we became best buddies and continue to this day. So, there you go.
There you go. Yeah. You've been in my life forever, and I'm glad you're joining me for an episode of the podcast.
Oh, good. I was going to say,
chats.
I hope that that's a good thing.
Yes, it is, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say you're one of my mom's quirkiest and most interesting friends, and therefore the one I get along with best.
I'm not sure that I knew that I was quirky until... I don't know. Well, I will say being an identical twin back in the day when we were little kids was a very unusual thing. And my mother was the only person who never made a mistake. Even my dad would call us by, our other, he gave us a nickname, Cookie. He called both of us Cookie because we were like, Dad, you don't know who we are, do you?
Yeah.
But being unusual was something that I didn't really realize, I don't think, until I got to be an adult. And as adults, we went on to live different lives. And in spite of the fact that we talked to one another every day, we were always kind of weird. And now I'm just weird alone.
Yeah. She's weird somewhere else. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about people are kind of singling you out because you're an identical twin. That's how to a lesser extent, that's how I felt being a lefty. I always felt like, oh, well, I'm unique and different in this way. And that was kind of why I was different. But I did always feel different, but I just kind of chalked it up to, I don't know, I'm just
a
left-handed. Yeah, it's like when you do have this one special thing that makes you different, you kind of just assume, well, that must be it. I must just be an identical twin. And that's why people treat me differently or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. But so you didn't kind of put it together until you were older,
right?
That you are.
Yeah, I am
a little quirky.
Yeah, I am Diane.
You are. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also being an identical twin. It was interesting because we are very much alike. However, it meant more to my sister to be untwinned than it did to me. You know, I've always just kind of been a bit of an airhead, I guess. And that was fine.
And she wanted like her own identity outside of your twin relationship.
Yeah, which was really pretty humorous because even when we were, you know, in high school and we started dating, my mother would say, does anyone know which one of you that boy came here to see?
Does he know?
No. So, you know, it's always kind of been a thing. I guess I don't really think that I feel like most people are more like me than different. And again, you know, that maybe comes from just having always been with someone. Didn't learn how to be alone until I was an adult. And then I just figured, well, we're all alike. I mean, I'm used to being with somebody who looks like me and sounds like me, and is almost as nice as me.
Almost. Well, I remember you were telling me a while ago that when you and Craig, your husband, started living together, maybe you would always pour like 2 glasses of water or get 2 of everything, and then he wouldn't do that for you, and you thought it was very rude of him.
I did.
Because you were just so used to having that person there and them kind of, you know, accommodating and expecting your needs. And
just kind of knowing what I needed. Yeah. So the whole idea of being a single person, I'm still working on that. As I approach my 73rd year. No,
74.
74.
You're in your 73rd.
Oh dear.
Would you guys do the classic kind of twin hijinks as a kid? Switching places, dressing the same, messing with people?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, we were dressed alike until we were in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And then we had a big fight one day because I thought it was my turn to pick what we were going to wear, and she thought it was her turn. And so we got into a little pushing and shoving. And most of the time, you know, she was 17 minutes older. So she, you know, was the older one of us. Yeah, we were born on the same day at the same time, 17 minutes apart, my poor mother.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was the oldest. So from that day on, we got to wear whatever we wanted. But I hadn't seen her for many months because she lives in North Carolina. And a mutual friend of ours had a wedding at one of their children got married. And I hadn't seen my sister for months. And it was on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And we were all ready to go to the party the afternoon before there was a big barbecue. And I remember that I had on a pair of white pants, and I had picked I had a blue jersey with me, and we're getting ready to go out the door. And I said to Craig, I can't, wait a minute. And he said, what? I said, I got to change my shirt. Why? And he said, you look fine. Let's go. You know, we don't want to be late. I can't. So he had no idea what was wrong with his wife. And I put on a red shirt. And when we pulled up to the party, here is my sister waiting in a pair of white pants and a red shirt. Okay. So we got hysterical because we looked at one another, and here we are.
Yeah.
We didn't even plan this. It is. It is freaky. It's freaky for sure. Yeah.
So you definitely believe in some kind of telepathic communication between you two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We finish sentences together, and we still do that as adults, which is really, I mean, it always gets us into fits of laughter now. But when we were little, you know, we would just be talking and all of a sudden say the same words in the same voice. And, you know, apparently most people don't do that.
Yeah.
Again.
It just felt so normal.
It did.
To you. Yeah. Yeah. It must have been so hard so you went to different colleges. Was that the first time you were apart?
Yep.
It must have been so hard to just not have that person there that you're just so used to like bouncing things off of or finishing your sentences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was hard being an adult alone. You know, I think it's hard to be an adult anyways. We should all be children for as long as possible.
I agree.
But Yeah, that was a real eye-opener for me.
Mm.
I had no idea that this is what a single person actually, the way they lived. Yeah.
Did you struggle socially, like feeling brave enough to branch out on your own?
Yeah, I think because, we, being an identical twin, you're always with somebody else. I mean, and we look out for one another, even if we weren't doing the exact same things. In high school, we took off and did different things, but we were always known as the twins, the twins. And as I say, back then, there weren't a lot of twins, and identical twins were even more unusual. And so, it was an odd thing, but we've always looked out for one another. And, I think it's not hard for me to talk to people. Because I had somebody to talk to all day long.
Yeah.
Who looked like me and sounded like me. And, so I can start a conversation easily.
You can. Yeah.
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 Which is fine.
Yeah. It's a good skill to have.
I guess it is.
Yeah. You're a good socializer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in my work, that was helpful too, I think. I didn't have trouble, recruiting patients.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to say what you did for work and everything?
I've done a lot of different things, actually. The best job I ever had was in nephrology research. We worked with dialysis patients, and I've always been a music and science person, and I just found it to be fascinating to be working with people who were chronically ill and trying to figure out a way to, make their lives better. While they're dependent on, this process that they had to go through 3 times a week. So, yeah, it was good because, you have to make people believe that they should give up, part of their blood supply in order to be tested so that, I have to pretend I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be charming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had the background for that, being a twin.
Yeah. Nice. What were you guys like growing up in school? Like, how were you in class and everything?
Our first 3-4 years we were together, and then we were separated. And that, I remember, 4th grade was really hard because we were used to being together.
Yeah. And
we didn't seem to create the disturbance that we did as we got older. And by the time we were in high school, oh my God, some of the things that we did. Oh, geez, Louise.
Well, now you got to share some of them.
Well, we both took chemistry, and the chemistry teacher could tell us apart. We had the same math teacher. He did not realize, even though we had different names, that he had 2 different girls in his class until my mother went to, the open house one. And he was then brought to the fact that he had 2 students. We looked alike, we sounded alike, we sat in the same row, So once we found out that he couldn't tell us apart, Elaine used to have chemistry when I was having math, and so the chemistry teacher could tell us apart. And the first few times that we switched classes, he thought that it was somewhat humorous. The last time we switched, in the morning, I went to her chemistry class, and she went to my math class. And in the afternoon, when I showed up at my math class and the math teacher found out that he had been duped yet again, and it was disruptive to the class because the kids could tell us apart, or they knew. So it would, create havoc. So I am walking down the hall, and he spots me, the math teacher. She's already gone to her chemistry class, and he says to me, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Diane." And he said, "I don't believe you." And I said, I'm Diane. You girls did this to me again this morning, blah, blah, blah. So then he sends me to the office to be identified. Okay. I come back. This is Diane. I have to knock on the door. He has to open the door. It was so much more disruptive than it would have been if Elaine and I had just switched again.
Yeah.
And That was the thing that bothered him, was that we were disrupting his class.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh dear, you did this all by yourself. So, yeah, we used to do stuff like that.
I feel like you have to.
Yeah.
That's kind of the dream, to be an identical twin and be able to switch classes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It was fun.
classic hijinks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, there were kids who they saw us as one person, So if they knew one of us, they knew both of us. And when we each got married and had children, and for a while we lived in the same town. And if we go to the grocery store, we go to all ends to not have to explain that I am not Dan's mom. I'm his aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because that happened a couple of times. And, then the person that mistook me for her, and they're embarrassed, and they're, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. And so we went to great lengths to avoid that.
Yeah.
You see somebody coming out and go, oh no,
Yeah.
this is somebody she knows and I don't.
I feel like it's hard enough to avoid those people you just don't want to have to make small talk with in the grocery store. And then you have double the amount of people, and you don't even know who you're supposed to be looking out for, because you don't know these people, but they know you. At any time you could be spotted.
That's right.
Yeah, and forced into a small talk conversation. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, it was something.
Do you think it was a good move to separate you guys in class when you were younger, or do you think it was kind of a hindrance to you?
No, it was probably good.
Yeah.
It probably was good. I mean, I think, we're still very close. And interestingly enough, my brother required a kidney transplant, and he's lived in Japan for many years. And my twin sister was the donor, and I went over to support the two of them. And so that was a wonderful experience, and he's done very well. And I remember when the surgeon, he took Elaine and I, my twin sister and I, together, and he wanted to talk to us about a minor complication post-op. It wasn't a big deal, but he just wanted to go through. And we're sitting next to one another. And when we sit down, even as adults, we usually end up sitting right next to each other and not being aware that it's maybe a little weird to see these two old ladies sitting, knee to knee.
Yeah.
But we still do that. It's just a thing. And anyway, so he's telling us about what's going to happen with treatment and we're not looking at one another at all. And we did the same voice, the same words, the exact same expressions, apparently. And here's this very serious man who burst out laughing. And he said, I've never seen anything like that before. So we are still capable of being the identical twins. And I think it was good to separate us, even though it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that would probably help to kind of learn how to form your own identities. Yeah, as hard as it was.
Yeah.
How are you in school specifically, with your schoolwork and ADHD and everything? Do you remember struggling particularly, or?
I guess that my parents were very good about trying to encourage us to find something that you liked. And because I liked math and science, it was easy. It was hard sometimes to do stuff. I mean, you and I have talked a little bit about education, and when children are bored, sometimes you either sit very quietly or you create a lot of trouble. I tended to be quiet just because just walking down the hall it was odd enough for me to be with my sister, without my sister, So in school for me was a way to I think that I did a little bit better than she did. And for me, that was a way for me to be independent and, better than she was.
Even though you're the younger.
That's right. I'm the baby.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
What quirks did you start to notice as you got older and you were out of that kind of twin environment, and now you're just a solo adult living on your own and realizing everyone is not like you?
Well, I think that I've always taken solace in being outside And I remember, one job when I was working in, it was before I worked in the research with dialysis patients. And, we used to have a dinner break because I always worked the 3 to 11 shift. And I found it was very easy for me to go off and go for a walk. And as long as you didn't leave the hospital campus, you could go outside. And nobody ever thought that was a good idea. I mean, I was never good at sitting down and gossiping about what was wrong with this person or that person, or I would much prefer to, go out. And actually, there was one gal that I worked with for about 2 years, and she probably was, ADHD as well. And one day at dinner, there was 15 minutes left, and I always went out for a walk. And she said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go for a walk. You want to come? And she said, yes. And I was stunned. But, we went out and looked at flowers and, houses. And, we had the little bit of a campus that we could walk on. And I remember realizing at that point that she and I were probably more alike than I was with anybody else that I had worked with. And I never felt, like I said, because I was a twin and I was never alone, really. I wasn't aware that I had that difference. Because I've been weird sinds the beginning.
Yeah, it's always been weird. Yeah. Just didn't know in what ways.
Yeah,
you were weird. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting when you meet another person with ADHD, you kind of, even if you don't know that's what's going on, you just feel this kind of like kinship with them. And you're just, conversations flying, you're kind of going on a bunch of different tracks and you're both on the same page. Like, it's just so fascinating how we're drawn to each other. And then you really kind of realize it pretty quickly with certain people.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have always been sort of a free spirit, and whether I fit in or not. And again, I, now that I'm a real grown up and I'm going to be older than I thought I was, I realize that it probably, I had a lot of approval just because I had an identical twin. And so I didn't have to worry about fitting in.
Yeah, it's true. You have a built-in friend always. Yeah. I feel like that makes such a difference in how you grow up. Like, I was lucky enough, Lily was 2.5 years younger than me, so we weren't like friends in school, I would say, but I got lucky enough to grow up with this great neighborhood of kids where I luckily never really, I had my problems with like bullies in middle school and high school and stuff like that, but like I always had friends. I never struggled socially because I always had this built-in group of buddies, like my friends in the neighborhood, so I never had to like worry about being that isolated kid. But that makes such a difference in how you grow up and your confidence and your willingness to socialize. You just don't really think about it as much as someone who like grew up just being totally isolated. I can't imagine. It's so nice to have like that built-in friend. I feel like it changes everything.
Yeah. As a mom, I think that it took me a while to understand some of my own children's anxieties because I would think, I don't understand why this is bothering you. And, because I was never alone. So, remember the junior high years are kind of the worst years of your life.
Yeah.
And I think now I think back on it and I think I just didn't get, how much they needed to be reassured. And because, it was totally foreign to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That is probably so nice to kind of just have this built-in security blanket almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. This built-in buddy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of ADHDers and autistic people say, going back to the workplace where you're the one taking a walk, a lot of people have that similar experience where they don't want to just sit around at lunch. They need to like go and have a break by themselves or, not chat to people during their breaks. But a lot of coworkers, for whatever reason, are like very judgmental about people who do that in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And they see it as this like social faux pas that it's a rejection of them. You don't want to socialize with them because they're not really non-ADHDers and non-autistic people don't really understand that need to like recharge or get out and move your body or whatever. They're all kind of just following the social rule of this is the expectation if everyone sits and socializes and it's like considered rude not to. I've heard that from so many ADHDers that they were that person at the workplace that they would get, kind of like weird looks from people or judgments. Yeah.
And I also, there were times when I would just wander around the hospital because, I worked in the lab and it was interesting to me. I loved what I was doing. However, the hospitals can be very interesting places and you can meet people, especially if it's, somebody and they're not so ill that they're not watching who goes by and to say hello and, and so I'm sure that I saw parts of every institution that I worked in there because I would be wandering around.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
I always thought it was curious.
Yeah.
That was the word that I would use to describe.
That's a good word for you.
Yeah. Curious.
Yeah, you are curious. And it's such an important character trait, that's how you see the world, how you get out of your little box and explore new things and yeah, just more interesting.
Yeah. Thanks. I don't recall being afraid of trying new things. And again, I think having a twin so that, I was never really by myself. So, if something went wrong, I could always blame her.
Yeah.
Or she would blame me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And she's that way too. I mean, neither one of us are afraid to try different things. I think she's a little bit steadier because she always perceived herself to be responsible for me. And
really took on the older sister role.
She did.
17 minutes made a big deal.
It did. Yeah. And we got into a lot of trouble. We it was very easy for us to make something ridiculous out of nothing.
Yeah.
And be totally entertained by it.
Yeah. Was it you leading the mischief usually?
Most of the time, yeah.
That's what I've heard from my friends as well. Apparently I was the instigator and then they would kind of be brought along with me.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing it together, but all of my friends all have stories of, when you had us do this or you led us into that.
Oh my God.
I thought we were getting up to mischief together.
Oh yeah. Oh, Lord. Driving the wrong way down a one-way street in Boston. Oof. Yeah.
Accidentally.
Oh, yeah.
Took the wrong turn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We got ourselves out of that, though. Yeah. That's another thing. Because you're giving me a lot of things to think about in my childhood here.
Yeah, good.
But because we looked alike and sounded alike and would sometimes speak exactly the same words at the same time, we got out of things just because we were an anomaly and it was okay.
It's like charming.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a dangerous thing to learn as a kid too, that you can kind of like put on this little show and dance and people will be charmed by it and kind of let things slide.
Yep. There they go, those weirdos. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about just how much growing up as an identical twin would totally change your perception of yourself and how your ability to see that you are different. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
How do you feel about those twins that are like really like they have shows on TLC or whatever where they're like really, really into being a twin and they'll like live their whole lives together and they'll like marry a set of identical twins? How do you feel about those people?
Well, it's part of me wonders if it would be incredibly confining because as adults, we are different. I see that now and it's good. And as soon as we're together, we're dopes. We're back to being the dopes that we were. And, it's a lot of fun. And we often take center stage just because now as old women, we look alike, we sound alike, we say the same words. That hasn't changed. And so I wonder if, we did meet identical twin boys one summer. And they were, it was a camp-like thing. And they, too, that was another thing where like, wow, those boys look exactly alike. And they probably didn't because my sister and I have a slightly different noses. But I remember, thinking that the four of us hung around for a while because we understood. We understood what it was like to be who we were.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's security in being a twin and marrying a twin. Oh, it's a lot of twins.
That's a lot of twins.
Yeah, and then if you have twins,
Yeah.
wow, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I value my independence now. Took me a long time to get here, but I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's ultimately good to kind of go your own way. And like you said, it's not like you were leaving each other. You share these same similarities and you're still the best of friends. But
yeah,
it's nice to kind of form your own identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a little bossy.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's her nickname.
Bossy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is Ditzy.
Bossy Ditzy.
Yeah. I named her. She named me.
That sounds about right. Yeah. It's interesting that you really got that little sister experience despite you two being the oldest siblings.
Yes. Yeah.
Technically, I guess she's the oldest, but
Yeah.
it's interesting that she really leaned into that and really gave you that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. I feel like at some point Lily and I switched. I don't know when, but I feel like Lily and I switched and she kind of took on that personality and attitude of being the older sister, and I kind of fell into this younger sister role, and it really does kind of make you act out in certain ways when that's the expectation, is that you're the irresponsible one, you're the little kid, so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll act like a little kid, and
I can do that.
Yeah, I feel like it made me a bit more mischievous when Lily kind of became the more mature one. It's funny how we fall into those roles.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
17 minutes or a couple of years. It's not like it's 17 years or a couple of centuries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Calm down. Yeah.
But just enough to, be free.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I wanted to ask you, we usually do talk about a few ADHD strengths and then some of your ADHD challenges. I do see a lot of ADHD strengths in you, like the curiosity, I think, is a great one. You're very musical, very chatty, creative, outgoing. What else do you think?
I think that I'm very good at finding solutions to things with whatever is available. And that is something that I never, really realized. I mean, I know not everybody can do that. And sometimes, especially as an adult and, being a mom, I realize that, we don't have to get concerned about this because we have that right there and that's going to work. And I'll show you. And not everybody can do that. Married to somebody who, can't do it. Really, really smart man.
Yes.
But when it comes to, he's very methodical. And I'm not so much.
Yeah.
My method works.
Yes, it works for you.
That's right.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting how you guys are very different in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Sometimes it's starting and finishing. That's something that I learned in research. You can't do, especially when you're not the principal investigator, you are being directed to collect this data and there are deadlines. And part of that, I'm sure, is why I loved that job so much, because we worked hard and we found out some really interesting things. And not being the one who had to put the deadlines on myself, but having them put on me because, we had a presentation to give or we had a publication deadline, and those things helped me to realize that, you start and finish and then you see what the result is. And wow, that was pretty good. So it's a mantra for me now. Start and finish, start and finish.
It's a good one. That's a hard one for ADHDers, especially to learn. I really struggle with finishing things. Yeah. Once I get what Kristen and I talk about on the podcast, because transitions are one of those executive functions that ADHDers struggle with, is transitioning. We say transitioning into the wet and out of the wet, how we like showering. We like being in the shower, but it's like getting yourself to take that step because you're going to be cold and it's uncomfortable and there's this transition. And then once you're in, it's like, great, now I'm warm and cozy. And then you don't want to transition out.
Right.
So it's like transitioning in and out of the wet is the hardest part. Once you're in the wet, you're fine.
Yeah.
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 It really is such a struggle to like wrap things up. And then, you've been busy all day and you've done a bunch of different things, but you haven't actually like completed something. So then you don't have that like satisfaction.
Right.
I feel like that's a challenge.
Yeah. Another thing that I've learned as going along is that it's perfectly okay to accept and decide, I thought that was going to be more interesting, or I was going to, if I didn't succeed at something, then, what did I do wrong? And as I've gotten older, I realized that there's very little that we should really be worrying about. Very little. Very few things matter. And it really is important to be able to say, like, I was in a book club for years, and the idea that you could go to the meeting and say, I didn't finish it because I didn't like it was revolutionary. What? You didn't finish reading the book? Yeah. But I thought we had to finish reading the book. Well, if you don't like it, why would you finish it?
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
That could be applied to my whole life.
Yeah.
And that has been very freeing. We're bigger judges of ourselves than anyone else, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
And why?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're so harsh on ourselves with that perfectionism. And
Yeah. And, we are perfect.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah, of course. Well, we are. Yeah.
We are. So,
but for everyone else, yeah. And I feel like that attitude of you have to finish what you start becomes a hindrance where you don't want to start things because you don't want to, what if I'm making the wrong decision? Or you don't want to get stuck. Like, I feel like I've always been surprisingly good at, which doesn't sound like a good thing, but good at quitting things.
Yeah.
Where I always encourage, if you're unhappy and you're not liking it, why would you finish a book if you're not liking it? I'll put a book down whenever. I don't care. Yeah. But I feel like enough people don't have that attitude, They'll stick with something they don't like, or they'll stay in a job that they hate forever and ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, at some point, you just got to be, I think people get wrapped up in that sunk cost fallacy where I've put so much time and work into this. But if you're not happy, you're not happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being curious and exploring different things, I think, ultimately, are we going to be rich, Grace, you and I? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
Because we certainly have enough.
Yes.
And more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we have great stories.
Yeah.
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 I know when you've traveled around and, I've heard, oh, they've gone here, or she's gone there, or and I think, keep going. Because, you're experiencing things that some people just won't.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I remember when I've traveled a lot. And how did you do that? Well, you buy a plane ticket and you hope that it's not going to crash, and you get somewhere and you ask people, where do I get something to eat, and not being afraid of trying new things, I think. And so I'll be saying started finishing all the way home now after this is over. Yeah. Because it is easy to be distracted and go on to something new.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice that you kind of had that structure put in place for you, and it really kind of helped you because, I feel like for so many of us, if we don't have that external structuring of our time, we never really learn how to do it ourselves. And it was great that you got to see like the value and importance and how good it felt to finish things. And because that's something I really struggle with, is structuring my own time. I really need that like external force to do it for me. Otherwise, like, I don't have to do it. If it's just me being the boss, I know that I can get away with not doing it, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Time management seems like, on the other hand, something that you continue to struggle with that kind of distresses your husband.
Yeah.
As from my experience of bringing you guys to the airport whenever you go on a trip. You're always running late, and I know it's always you and not Craig. Yeah. But you always make it.
Yeah, we
right?
do.
Yeah,
we do. Oh, my Lord. Yeah. I had surgery a few years ago, and we were, again, late for something, and we were taking a flight, and I had a cane at that time, and when I got into the airport, there was somebody waiting with a wheelchair because I had asked for that, and he had no idea. He had no idea. But, why did I do this? Well, because at that point, it was very uncomfortable for me to be walking. And so he realizes now that they're going to take our bags, and he's like, I'm with her. I'm with her.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, my being late for everything, it had a positive. Yeah. It was good.
Silver lining.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that always been a struggle for you too?
Be on time?
Yeah. You struggling with time and him not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. We can't really conceptualize time,
I have alarms on my, phone now. And there was an alarm that went off this morning, and I thought, what was that for? But I also, use my phone. I happen to feel like it's a bit of a gift because I can set an alarm for something, and I can label the alarm, and then I will be like, oh, yeah, okay, I need to stop this now and do that instead. So that's been helpful.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to set an alarm for everything, but when I want to be on time, I usually set it up, give myself probably 30 minutes extra so that I will actually show up on time or very close.
You did a good job today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was very impressed.
Lots of alarms.
Yeah. That's part of it is we underestimate how long, I just have no idea how long things will take me. And I always, it's called magical thinking, where you think somehow magically this time it'll be different and time will work differently, and I'll somehow be able to transport over the traffic and do this in half the time, even though I've never once done it in half the time. Somehow today will be different, and it never is. And you just set yourself I've gone through periods in my life where I have to be at a job at a certain time, and I'll be 10 minutes late every single day.
Yeah.
And every day I'll do the same thing. I'm like, all right, this time it'll be different.
Yeah.
And it never is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the clocks in our house are set. I'm not exactly sure how many minutes ahead.
Yeah, you shouldn't know how many minutes ahead, because then you're doing the mental math.
Yeah. But my buddy there, my husband, they're enough ahead so that we're not late. And it's much easier for me than it used to be, looking at the clock and going, oh my God, I've done it again.
Yeah.
I've done it again. Because like you said, it would be just about every day would be something.
Yeah.
And so now I just kind of try to add an extra half hour onto something, and it makes me feel much better about my capabilities.
Good. Yeah.
I'm actually on time or very close. Yeah. Which is good.
As long as you get close. Yeah. That's what matters.
Yeah.
I tell people to lie to me, genuinely, please lie to me about what time this thing starts or what time we have to leave.
Yeah.
Please lie to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, I think it's important to figure out what strategy works best for you, which is, like I said, I don't panic if I don't have everything I need in order to do something, because I think I'll find out something. I'll figure it out. I managed to do that my whole life. Why would it be different today?
Yeah.
It's not going to be. However, it is good to have, some boundaries and limits and be, at least try to be a normal person.
Yeah.
Try your society.
Best. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have other strategies that you use that help you kind of keep your brain on track? Or?
I probably sleep is overrated, but I think that it is important, to not say yes to everything, which is another thing.
I mean, just talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, being curious, I think, makes me think, oh, sure. Yeah. I'll fit it in somehow. And then, I start going in my head, well, if I didn't have to go home and have dinner, or, can I call him tonight and ask him to get takeout or something?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that can be fun if it's not something that you do every single day to your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a creative way.
Yeah. There's a term, I can't remember what it is. It's like impulsive something, but essentially ADHDers impulsively will say yes to things, whether it's like in the moment, that sounds fun to us, or we feel like we have to say yes to things and we kind of put too much on our plates, and then the day comes and then it's like, shit, now I have to actually do this thing.
Yeah.
So that was a strategy we just talked about on the podcast, actually, of really thinking through your yeses and really, if it's going to be a no, don't say yes and kick the can down the road. And then when the day comes, you'll either have to cancel on someone or show up and you're unhappy about it. It's like really genuinely try to think about being on that day. Am I going to actually want to do this? So I feel like that is a hard strategy. People don't like to have to say no to things, but it is, self-preservation. And then you're not resentful of things that you have to do.
Right.
Because it's like, you didn't have to, you just you shouldn't have said yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because taking the time to think about something, I'll get back to you on that. That is, again, that's something that I learned when I was working in research, because, I don't have all the data. And until I have the data, I'm not going to tell you something that I don't know will actually hold up, So working in science and medicine was really good for me from the perspective of it was so interesting. And then, as you collect data, you don't start hypothetically theorizing just because you've done a few, tests, reproduce something 3 times. That's not enough, But it did teach me that I'll have to get back to you on that. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good strategy.
Yeah. Or thanks for asking, but I can't help you this time. Phrases that I tell myself in my head now, if you answer the phone, think. Don't just go, no problem. Yeah. I have to check on that. I'll get back to you.
Yeah. It seems like such a simple thing, but so many people struggle with that people pleasing or that impulsive need to say yes to things. So it is a difficult skill to have.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you are so kind of creative and free-spirited, but then you also really were drawn to that science side of things. The duality of woman. Yeah.
Yep.
And you've played the violin for how long now?
Let's see. Let's do the math. More than 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
You and I used to go to fiddle camp together. I've talked about fiddle camp on this podcast before.
Yeah.
Something super cool we used to do. Yeah.
It was really fun.
I know.
It really was
I had
fun.
a great time doing that.
Yeah.
Do you think the violin is helpful for your brain? Just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that, math and music are related. And it's interesting because my twin sister did not continue playing violin. We both started, and she plays the piano now. And she started playing the piano in her 60s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she'll tell you that she's been playing for 4 years and she has 4 songs.
One a year.
Yeah. But yeah, the music to me is very relaxing, and I am sure that I have passed my peak. I played in an orchestra and a string quartet for years, and it was good. And it surprised me every time somebody paid us a check for playing a wedding. It's like, wow, we're just a group of friends and we enjoy playing together, but thank you. It's probably been a good thing for me, because when I feel stressed, I will either listen to or play the violin if I have time. I try to make time to play 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm far less critical of myself than I used to be.
Good.
Yeah. Because I can play, and lots of people
You're very
can't.
good. Yeah. It's a very hard instrument. People who don't play don't realize how hard it is. Yeah. To even make a sound that doesn't sound squeaky and bad is challenging.
Yeah. Wow. My mother listened to a lot of bad stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, she lived long enough to hear some of the good stuff.
Hey, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those instruments that you can't really practice quietly. Like, guitar or something like that. It's really all or nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, you're very talented, so
oh, thank you.
You sound great now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's changed at all of enjoying more structured classical stuff versus wanting to do more of like the freeform fiddling stuff?
Oh, it was so interesting. The first time I ever went to do fiddle stuff with some of the people, the people that friends in our neighborhood knew that I played the violin classically. And then some of them were, they played bluegrass. And so did I want to go? So there were a couple of neighbors and they used to go once a week, and I never went that frequently, but one time I went and I brought my violin, and I decided I was going to listen for a little while because where's the sheet music?
Yeah. What do
There
I do?
isn't any.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Do you know what key we're going to be playing in? No. What key? Do you know what the first note is going to be? No. We're going to, we're just going to, Bill's going to sing, and once he starts singing, we'll just play with him. I thought, what?
Yeah. What a foreign concept.
What?
Yeah.
Where's all the, no, I hadn't. And I realized that the bluegrass people were way more fun.
Yeah.
Way more fun than the classical people.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, I love listening to classical music, but no, we just weren't as fun.
Yeah.
We weren't. It was way too structured, and And the bluegrass people were so grateful to have a violin show up.
Yeah.
Because lots of banjos, lots of guitars, but, fiddle.
You need
And
the
I
fiddle.
thought, I really don't fiddle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how to fiddle.
Yeah. It's
But-
totally a different skill.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, they're a much more accepting group. And so therefore, I played for a long time with, because once you start realizing that there's bluegrass music, it's all around you, and it's easy to go and listen and play. And they're good people. Not that the classical people aren't good. They're just a little more rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to be structured.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting to the time where you're going to have to go home, so we should wrap things down. But before we do something on the podcast called Pizza Secrets, where you kind of share a story from your life, childhood, adulthood, whenever, of a shitty little thing that you did. That it could be something you feel a little guilty about, something you want to get off your chest, just kind of a funny story of like a sneaky little mischievous thing that you did. Do you have a pizza secret that you would like to share?
Well, I've been known to throw things away that aren't mine. And I've done it to more than one person in my life. It was a way as a child that my twin sister, who sometimes thought that I needed more direction than I thought I needed, because she really wasn't any older than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So there was one time where my mother had bought whatever the biggest bag of Oreo cookies was that you could get back when we were, like 16 years old. And we took the whole thing, and it must have been a half gallon of milk. And we went to our room and we ate the whole box of cookies and drank the whole quart of or half gallon of milk. And it was my idea. And it was a damn good idea.
I think so.
And she ate right along with me. And, I cleaned up, of course, because, it was my idea. And then when my mother found that the cookies were gone and that we had a half gallon of milk, I blamed it all on Elaine. Yep, I did.
Oh,
I did.
My God.
And I didn't feel bad about it at all.
She participated.
She did.
Yeah.
She thought it was a good idea at the time. Yeah. Yeah. So that stands out as being a pretty big, because she was really mad.
Yeah.
She was really mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of cookies.
Yeah. It was. And Elaine was really mad because I blamed her. And, my mother was very good at picking things out between us to try and figure out who really had the idea. Yeah, but
she knew.
Yeah,
knew it was you.
Yeah,
yeah.
But Elaine got in trouble because she didn't know enough to say, "Why are we doing this?"
Yeah,
yeah. This was a good idea.
It was a good idea.
It was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I've been carrying it around for a long time.
Well, that's what the segment is all about, is kind of confessing to these things and some of them I confess, I'm like, I don't feel bad about it. I'm just sharing it on the podcast.
Yeah. And then there was a coat once that I had a coat. I just thought, we've had this long enough. We.
It
was his. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I'm not a single offender.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I have to clean up. Yeah.
Well, he shouldn't have stuff around if he doesn't want it to be tossed out. I do that sometimes too. And even with my own stuff, I'm just like so sick of it. I'll just throw it away. And then I'm like, where'd that thing go? Oh, I threw it away. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect Pizza Secret. It was great to hear a bit more about your life. And being a little troublemaker like me, it makes sense that we've always gotten along so well.
I have great faith in your success.
Thank you.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, this has been an episode of Weirds of a Feather. Thank you for listening. You can find us on all the social media stuff. You guys know where to find us, Instagram and whatnot. And we'll talk to you next time. All right. And then at the end of the podcast, we do something we call it squawking out, where we kind of make bird calls, and I fade it off on the track.
Okay.
So if you got any bird calls that you want to just kind of throw out. Woo, 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 woo. That's a good one. Okay, see ya.
Bye.